Positive Mind Saturdays with your host, Positive White.
Welcome back. It is Positive Mind Saturdays with your boy Positive B White over here at 101 TKO Radio, the People's Plug. Y'all be sure to lock in with us right now. We are streaming live on YouTube. So go to YouTube, pull up YouTube, in the search bar, 101 TKO Radio. Now, my special guest in the building this morning, we rocked out with Matt Cowell a little bit earlier, but I got my boy who I've also known for quite some time. What's up, man? I got my boy Jamal Vallair in the building.
What's good? Thank you for having me.
Hey, man, it's a pleasure to rock out and vibe with you, man, this morning, this beautiful Saturday morning, man. And obviously, you do a lot. You know, you're very multi-talented. So one of the things you do is mindset coach.
Absolutely.
So let's for the listeners who are listening who might not know who you are. Let's start from the beginning, the humble beginnings. Where are you from originally?
Well, I'm from Stone Mountain, Georgia. That's where I met BJ. We can actually say we go back over 20 years now.
Yeah, man.
We officially uncles now.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I moved around a lot. I moved over 21 times before I turned 18.
Wow.
And so I'm accustomed to transition, things moving, being in different environments. Where we lived at one point like the Huxtables, and then we were on the other side of the Huxtables where you lived in hotels, motels, people's basements, just constantly in transition. And that just shows how life operates. And so my thing was I was in denials in JROTC, and I was like, I'm not going to the military. And then I was the company commander of the ROTC, still not going to the military. And my grandmother had a ritual at 18. You had to tell her if you were going to a trade school, if you're going to college, or if you're going to the military. And I knew because of the way I learned, I'm a kinesthetic learner. So I need to interact. I need to talk. I need to be able to ask questions. Handing me a book telling me to read 30 chapters is not going to necessarily work for me. So I knew that wasn't my particular way. And I was like, hey, let me do the military. So it was another way of stability. It was another way of breaking out on my own, traveling the world, and being able to see what did I want to create for myself that no one else can say they made me. And so it gave me a level of independence. It gave me a level of responsibility I was accustomed to. And then they say there's a quote that says sometimes people lean into greatness, and then sometimes greatness is thrust upon us.
Right.
And so sometimes it's being able to navigate. I have this principle that life is what you make of it regardless of the circumstances. The circumstances are always going to show up.
Yeah.
And so how you rise above whatever your challenges are, I'm a firm believer that there is an opportunity in every obstacle if you're willing to look at it the right way.
Yeah. Wow. Man, that's how we gonna start off the show today, man. Just that high energy.
We're gonna do a little intro, right?
Hey, man, that's what I'm talking about, man. That high energy, man. I appreciate that, man. And it's so good. We spoke a little bit earlier this week, man.
Yeah.
Because we were just going over some things. So, man, you got an amazing journey. So, I obviously you've moved quite some time. So you spent some time in the Navy, correct?
Yeah. So I would say sometimes. Actually, I did 20 years. So
20 years,
I came in 18. I just retired at 38 years old.
Congratulations,
I don't
bro.
know too many jobs where they let you retire at 38 years old.
I know, man.
But I am a product of if you have a dream, go after it no matter what.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, my first 3 years, I was like, oh, this ain't for me. Like, nah. Like right after boot camp, I was really ready to quit.
Yeah.
And I had a 4-year enlistment, and my first job, it was an undesignated deck seaman, which is pretty much bottom of the barrel. You get cussed out, you get treated call types, you staying late, your life is constantly in danger, right? And you're like, man, this is not the business for me. But I learned a lot about grit. I learned a lot about perseverance. I learned a lot about hard work. I learned what it means to not just show up for the job, but show up for purpose.
Yeah.
Right. There were people around me who had a lot of stuff going on personally and internally and emotionally that was worse off than I was. But the way I showed up for my environment, even though we knew it was a crappy situation, I had people like, if I'm on Jamal's shift, we're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to get work done. It ain't gonna be depressing, and no matter how hard it is, if I'm on his shift, and it got to a point where I was the lowest ranking person, but I had the highest level of respect, and I had the highest level of influence. So I was, they put me in charge of 10 people, as the E3, and people who are been in 5-10 years not in charge of that many people. And so favor is not fair, but you always have to work to be able to do what you do.
Yeah.
And so it gave me an opportunity to work my way through the military. I was like, after these 2 years, 'cause I used to drive the ship. So I used to drive a $250 million ship around the world. And I used to help land helicopters as a signalman. I used to be the crazy one running into there, putting fuel in that helicopter while the blades would drop down to 4 feet.
Oh wow.
Running, I didn't realize the military didn't really care about my life. When I look back, and I was like, man, y'all really had me just. There was one time where they were like, hey, we're gonna let you get off early if you paint the front side of the ship, right? Now this ship. Like the bull nose of the ship, like the very think of the highest point of the ship when you're at the very front part of the ship.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm in a JLG, so it's pretty much a contraption that kind of extends. You kind of see on skyscrapers and stuff like that. They paint the windows. So I'm painting the side of the very front, and I'm doing it. Like you're supposed to have 2 people integrity in there. Yeah. It was just me by myself.
Oh my god.
Because I was just trying to get off work. Look, I'm putting my life on line just to be able to get off at.
That's what we talking about.
3:30.
Serving your country. When we talk about serving your country,
they did not care about me. I'm here to tell you, right? So I'm painting the side of the ship, and I'm moving. They were like, man, they came out impressed, and my 2 bosses come out. They were like, Jamal, do not move, and I'm like, what's wrong? They're like, just do not move. I had this JLG. It has 4 wheels. It was on 2 wheels. It was leaning. It was about to fall into the ocean.
Oh my god.
They were like, we gonna manually move this whole contraption back. It's fully extended 90 feet above the air.
Oh my god.
I said, y'all really? I said I was about to put my life on line just to be able to get off at work at 3:30. I said, come on, guys, we got to do something different. So I became an analyst. So I became an aviation analyst. I've been doing that for over 18 years.
Yeah.
And so I was like, the difference between staying out in the sun in 110 degrees, painting the side of the ship, fighting off crocodiles and all that type of stuff, versus being in the air conditioning, working on computers. I said, this is what I can do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, you better believe it.
I made a transition, but I learned a lot of great things along the way.
You better believe it. And so I want to talk about, Miles Monroe, obviously one of your mentors.
One of the people I look up to.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's talk about Miles Monroe and why he's so impactful to you.
Oh, man. So I just did an interview with the late Miles Monroe's daughter.
Okay. I saw
so
that.
We're both in the personal development space. And because I had, I came in an absentee father household for a period of time in my life. It was understanding what manhood is. What do I need to grow into in order to be a man? You know, you come in single parent household, divorced household, you the man in the house of 12.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got no responsibility, but you've been given this title, you've been given this, this is what a man is, usually from a woman's perspective. Right. And so my goal was to be able to look out and seek out what manhood was, what it means to be a man of faith, not a religious man, because there's a difference.
Right.
A man of faith, a man of quality. And what I loved most about, he had so much depth. He wrote like over 50 books. Right. And so his perspective on what it takes, it was a kingdom perspective, was something I'm really inclined to know more about, is to be able to say, there's I go to one church where he says there's culture's way, there's religious way, and there's the king's way. And there's like the 3-way lifestyle is a different lifestyle that has operated of abundance and freedom.
Yeah.
But for Miles Monroe, it was just his depth of have understanding. And I was like, that's the man I can study.
Right.
Because he was not just a preacher. Right, you speak well. He's like, you're gonna be a preacher, but he was a politician. He was an advisor. He had so much understanding about leadership,
right,
levels of leadership, and then relationship. Like sometimes we can be rich in money, but poor in relationship.
Right.
We can be rich in some other areas of our life. Even with a lot of celebrities, we think just because they're celebrities, but they're on divorce number 6. This is no shade, but this is understanding. Yeah. Just because we're part of the human experience, just because we're good in one area of our life, doesn't mean we're great in all the others. And this is where mindset comes into play.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people are saying this is a fixed mindset. It will always be this particular way because of my belief system or what I've been trained to believe, or a growth mindset. If I give myself more time, more opportunity, and I start learning different skill sets. Because the only difference between me and the next person is a skill set.
Right.
The only difference between the basketball in your hand versus LeBron's hand is masterful skill set.
Right.
Right. I may be a novice because I can just watch it and be able to critique people's greatness. But there's a difference between when you've played the game at that level to be able to critique greatness.
Yeah, for sure.
And many times a lot of people are average critiquing greatness and they've never achieved. But that's another day.
Woo, boy. This interview is, we just We just fine. I hope our listeners are on the edge of their seat just like I am, because this is how we do it on
Let 'em
Positive
cook.
Mind Saturdays. My boy over there cooking up, man. And we, like I said, we've got history, but obviously, like I said, Navy, your and then your family man. So let's go into, we're both girl dads.
Yeah.
So
man.
we spoke about this on the phone, and also the engineer Nelson, he's a girl dad too.
Hey, shout out.
So we got some commonplace in the building, man. So let's talk about talk about fatherhood, man. How is fatherhood treating you, and that evolution of you learning what fatherhood is?
Man, let me tell you, fatherhood is by far the most humbling and rewarding experience of my life.
Oh man, me too.
You think you know something till you have some kids.
Oh man, I'm telling
You think you can prepare for everything. I was like, twins running our family, running my wife's family. I was
Talk
like,
to
Lord,
'em.
let me get 2-for-1 coupon and let me just don't have to worry about. But this one right here, she built different. She been here before. Like I have a bonus daughter who's 22, and I have a 7-year-old. My 7-year-old swears she's 22.
Yeah, lucky number
Oh
7.
my God.
Lucky number 7.
Oh my goodness. This when I tell you.
Look at the forehead, right?
But I have learned so much about what it means to be empathetic,
Yeah.
compassionate, emotionally intelligent. The reason why I'm able to coach such high performance leaders who make 7, 6, 8 figures, who have multiple businesses, who've impacted people all across the world, is because of my level of empathy.
You're right.
It's my ability to be able to not just be able to see your situation, but put myself in your shoes for a moment,
Right.
and be able to shift the trajectory of how you believe and what you think and what you see about yourself.
Right.
So when it comes to being a daughter, my daughter showed me a part of my heart that I have never had to access before.
Yeah, me too.
And I was like, ooh.
For sure.
I said, and I'm grateful because if I ever have a son, I'm gonna show him different. I'm gonna show it for him differently.
Yeah.
Versus you be all right. Shake it off.
Yeah,
Right. And so
energy is
sometimes
definitely
I'm more like my daughter showed me a cut right now. Oh, let me see it. My son, oh, you'll be all right. Hey, go rub that. And I think it allowed me to be more aware. But it all allowed me to be able to see other people differently. Like that's someone else's daughter.
Right.
Like you don't know until you have a daughter.
Yeah,
Until
that's
you
true.
have a son. And it, they little girls, I'm the only person in her life, and this is my testimony forever, that tells her no.
Yeah, me-
right.
yeah.
Grandma was strict, right? We don't come to the store, don't ask for nothing.
Don't touch
Grandma,
nothing.
don't touch nothing.
Touch
Put your
nothing.
hand on the cart.
Don't touch nothing.
My daughter coming with my mother, her grandmother, get anything you want. I said, the devil is a lie. Wait a minute, where was this?
We rebuked that devil this morning. We
like-
rebuke him.
I was like, where was this? My baby can have whatever she want. TT's, she picked which auntie she go out with.
Yeah.
Who gonna get her stuff. And so I'm the only person who gets to teach her no. And what I think about fatherhood is I tell her, because she's beautiful, the world's gonna tell her beautiful. But I also affirm how smart she is.
Right.
So every morning before I go to work or she goes to school, I drop her off. One of the best things is people talk about what is wealth. It is time freedom.
It's time freedom.
So when my
'Cause
daughter
we're all fighting. Money is the tool,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, I'm fighting to get my freedom back.
Yep.
So I want to be able to I want to be able to spend as much time, and I do. I spend as much time with my daughter. I took her to Savannah like 2 weeks ago. We got on the plane, went to Savannah, and just kicked it. You know what I mean? And that's it's those times that she'll remember.
Father-daughter days.
Father-daughter day.
Dedicated time that is just me and you.
It's just me and
And
you.
it's so important because you never know which becomes the core memory.
Right.
Right? That core memory becomes these are the moments that I had with my dad. These are the moments that he showed me that I was the only person in the room. And being able to have those moments highlights in different parts of her life. I always tell her how smart she is. And so we do our affirmations. God, thank you for making me kind. Thank you for making me a leader. Thank you for making me funny. Thank you for making me smart. So I'm affirming her before the world gets to pre-program her of who she needs to be.
Right.
Before cartoons and Roblox
Right.
and all these different things get to say, this is who you are. It's not foreign to her. And the role of a father, you're a validator.
Right.
Right. Mothers are nurturers, but as a father, your responsibility is to create infrastructure, security, and structure for her to be able to see herself through your lens before the world can be able to say, you're just going to be objectified based on your beauty. So I'm always reaffirming how smart she is. Now that can be a double-edged sword because she can be a lawyer now. She always knows the loopholes, right? She knows you said
They always get us.
You
Nelson.
said you not to do this, but not to do this.
Yeah, they always get us.
Look,
They get us. They get us, Nelson.
anytime they send me on
He
these
said-
lights, anytime she sees the lights on because I'm coaching, She knows, Daddy, let me get these cookies. Right? Knowing I can't go back and forth because I got 200 people online, or I got 50 people online, or I'm doing one-on-one with a client.
Right.
And she's like, but she knows not to ask for 5.
Right.
She knows not to ask for 4. She's like, let me get 3.
Let me get 3.
And I was like,
Let me get them 3.
Go ahead and get your 3.
Let me get them 3.
And then she smiles, and then she wait till I get out. She's like, Daddy, I was good the whole time you were on your call. So when people tell me they're not good at sales, I was like, my 6-year-old didn't take no classes, right? So don't tell me you don't know how to do sales. It's just a skill set. And how bad do you want it? So when it comes to being a father, man, I've learned how to be able to also reparent myself. There were some things that I didn't necessarily get in my upbringing. I had a lot of spirituality. I had some mentors. I had some people show up as surrogates, but there were some things that I didn't necessarily get that weren't healthy. And so there's some things I had to unlearn as well. And I'll tell you this story about fatherhood, which really was about being a pattern disruptor, about breaking the cycle. So, and this also ties into mindset. I was sitting in my office, and we were living at the time in San Diego in a tri-level house. And so there's 3 levels. First of all, I was like, man, I'm not doing these steps.
I love San Diego,
I said,
by the
sweet
way.
Jesus.
San Diego
it's great.
It's beautiful.
It's just the sun tax that they have.
Sun tax?
Yes. The taxes that you pay to live there because it's sunny every day.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's going to cost you.
Man, that's crazy because when we was out there, and I think the lady told us, the guy told us, our Uber driver, he said it's sunny out of 365 days, probably like over 200 is
Oh, yeah.
sunshine.
If you play golf, that's when people retire.
Yeah,
You got to
said
have money to
sunshine.
stay out there, though.
Yeah, you got
And
to
I was
have
like, they were like, why? Because I was just living there. They're like, why don't you retire out there? I said, because I'm going to have to get another job. I said, I ain't trying to do all that.
I know that's right.
I said, I retired. And so one of the things I talk about time freedom is when my daughter was born, I said, there's going to be a day and time where she's going to ask me to come to father-daughter day lunch.
Right.
And I'm not going to have to ask anybody's permission.
Oh, well, you just said it right there.
Bro,
you just said that's a. Can we get a hand clap on that, Nelson? Can we get a hand clap on that? We got to have a hand clap on
Bro,
that.
that happened to me November. That happened to me November. And I was almost in tears because I was like, man, I worked. I made so many different sacrifices. You got to think about it. 3 years in the 3 years out of the military, I was on the ocean. So
Yeah.
that was holidays, that was Thanksgivings, that was birthdays. Like that was things that I missed out. That was just a part of the package of being in the military.
Right.
So my daughter's never seen me deployed.
Right.
My daughter's never not seen me pick her up from school or drop her off from school. And they were like, you can stay in and get promoted, but you're going to have to deploy again. I said, I'm not willing to trade that in.
Right.
I was like, I'm fine. I'm 38. I still can start the next chapter of my life on my own terms. That's what I did. So the last 10 years, I built up a speaking and a coaching career, working with some of the top people in the world. And so back to the story about my daughter, it was about breaking cycles.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm sitting downstairs in my office doing what I do, and my daughter's on the 3rd floor in her room just screaming at the top of her lungs.
Just screaming.
I'm like,
Just screaming.
I'm on the 1st floor. I can hear her on the 3rd floor. I'm like, all right, give it about 30 seconds. She should stop. And I just hear her going and going and going. And in my mind, I'm like, all right, that's enough. So, all the things that you're told in the house when you were a little kid, who you think you are, you ain't no age,
Right.
you don't pay no bills in here. I'm the only person allowed to be screaming. So I'm going up each set of stairs, get up to the first set of stairs, they're like, she's still crying. She's still screaming. What's going on? So I get to the second, and I already made my mind up. It's go mode.
Yeah.
Right. Daddy is now officially turned into the Black Panther. Right. There is no safety here. There is no quarter here. It is me versus you. I am the captain now. Right. And I hear her screaming on top of her lungs, standing on her bed. And the first thing I yelled out, I said, "Hey!" And she got quiet. And I said, "Who do you think you are?" And and it got silent. And she turns around and she responds. And it knocked me to my knees. She says, "Daddy, I'm nobody." And I was like, I said, "Jamal, this is where you get to break a cycle here." Because if kids are supposed to be seen and not heard, when do you learn to use your voice as an adult? Right? If you're nobody to the man who brought you into this world, who are you to the next man who's interested because you're cute? So I had to. At that very moment, I said, "You have an opportunity to break a cycle and to parent differently,
Yeah.
or you can continue the cycle and just pass it on to the next generation."
Yeah.
So in the middle of that conversation, I talk about the power of awareness. It was, I said, hey, baby girl, I said, you are always somebody, no matter how angry or how mad daddy gets. I said, but how we process our anger and how we talk about how our feelings are will be different.
Fatherhood.
Right? It was like,
Yes.
that's a core memory I have now because when I talk to people who are in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, and I ask them, who do you think you are? Usually you shut down. Usually you retort to your occupation, but you never go to your identity. And so this is when it comes to mindset is the ages from ages 0 to 7 is where the brain becomes malleable and is actually starts to be able to learn all the rules of society of love, validation, and approval. So from ages 0 to 7, this is a hardcore memory where you learn a lot of these limiting beliefs that you take into your teens, that you take into your adulthood, and even into your older years. I coach people in their 60s and their 70s still dealing with limiting beliefs or core beliefs that were embedded through survival at 7, 8, 9, 15 years old.
Yeah.
So with that moment right there, that was an opportunity to disrupt the pattern and be able to reframe a new language about who she is. So when someone else says this is not who she is, you're like, I got information and validation that my father says this is who I am. Now she's gonna have to go into the real world, and other people gonna say some different things, but she'll never be able to not hear her father's voice.
Not hear her father's voice, and that's gonna be monumental in her development.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be.
My goal is not to spoil her because somebody else got to marry her, right?
Right.
Like my responsibility is to prepare her for the real world.
Right.
Because the world ain't gonna just give you everything because you cute.
It's not.
Right?
It's not.
So it's an opportunity for me to make sure that she is grounded, that she is clear, but she knows who she is, not only from her father's perspective, but from God's perspective, and understand that she's valuable just by existence, not based on performance.
Well, there it is, man. Hey, man, it sounds like we moving and grooving this morning, man.
Absolutely.
We done touched on quite a few topics, so we're gonna take a little break, and then when we get back, I think we're gonna touch on some mental health. We're gonna talk about some mental health,
Absolutely.
and how Jamal Vallair stays mentally clear in this environment. So y'all stay tuned with us over here at 101 TKO Radio, the People's Plug. Be sure to download the app so you can listen in. Visit us on YouTube, 101 TKO Radio. And yeah, stay locked in with us. We'll be back shortly. and we are back for another edition of Positive Mind Saturdays.
Absolutely.
With your boy Positive B White. I got the boy, my guy, Jamal Vallair in the building. And it seemed like the first part of the interview just kind of went really fast, but it's like you just was dropping gems and dropping little things on us, man. So shout out to you for that.
I appreciate it, man. It's been a good journey. Like, I'm a firm believer that don't let anything that you've been through be wasted.
For sure.
Like many times we waste, and then we end up dealing with regret because we didn't maximize it. And I'm like, if all things are supposed to work together for my good, then who am I to say something's bad?
Yeah. And
Right? Because I missed my lesson.
Yeah.
And this is when I do one of my mindset is life gives you a gift, it gives you a lesson, and it gives you opportunity to grow. This is the perfect reframe for any, no matter how bad life might be. What's the gift? It may be time, it may be an opportunity, it may be a lesson. What's the lesson? The lesson is usually based on a universal principle, or it's based on a perspective that's usually positive outlook. And my opportunity to grow is where do I need to grow to be able to meet the lesson so the next time I'm tested, I pass versus fail. And so usually just using that framework, what's the gift? What's the lesson? I'll use that, for example, absentee father, right? The understanding is my gift is that my father gave me things through my DNA that I never had to work for, that I never had to go to school for. So there were some things that I got. It was a gift, right? My stepfather being there for the short period of time, it was a gift. I saw some mirroring of what it means. My lesson is not to be better than my father's. It's to be the best version of myself, right? My opportunity to grow. My opportunity now to grow is to be able to say, let me make sure that I have quality mentorship and that I make sure that I have people that can hold me accountable. But what are the attributes that I want to build as myself for Jamal based on no other things? Because a lot of times we say, I'm going to be better than my parents, and then you be showing up just like them.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't forgive yourself as quickly because you spent so much time declaring who you're not going to be. Right? And so one of the beauties about self-awareness and personal development is learning where you start and where your DNA ends. So that's where the love of creation takes place.
Hey man, shout out to that. So I wanna go really down a same path, but just in a different way. So let's talk about mental health. And obviously, you've battled some things. So you had an issue with your heart. So let's talk about that issue.
Man, so I've most of my identity. There was a quote that says, "Who would I be if I had nothing to prove, nothing to hide, nothing to defend, and nothing to protect?" That is your pathway to freedom. And for a lot, I'm the oldest of all the grandchildren. I'm the oldest of my brothers and sisters. So there's always an expectation, right? You do it, you just move on to the next thing. And so I've created that, that was part of my MO, part of my identity. That's made me valuable, right? Other people depend on me. I'm the go-to guy. And so I brought that into different chapters of my life. When I joined the military at 18 years old, I had a friend of mine. We were really good friends. We played basketball. We were really good. And then he made some poor decisions on the job. And so in the military, you make one mistake, you out. Like there ain't no, some mistakes, like your whole livelihood. You got friends, you got family you got to take care of. They don't care about that. If you do certain infractions, you got to get out. So he was on the downward spiral. I was still, doing pretty good. And he calls me about 11 o'clock at night. And this is what it means to be quality friendship. Right? Calls me about 11 o'clock at night. And I'm just like, hey, what's going on? He was like, hey, man, bro. He said, I think I'm done. I'm like, done with what? He's like, I don't think this military is out for me, man. I made too many mistakes. And I can hear he's in a downward spiral. And in the military, you're not allowed to, I think he was probably like not even 21. He was probably like 20 years old. I'm 18. And so you're allowed to drink. And then you're definitely not allowed to do drugs, right? Zero tolerance. And he went to a downward spiral where he was hopeless. And he was like, I've already started drinking. I've already started smoking. And I got a gun, man. I'm pretty much done. And I was like, done. And all the elements around him at the time made him feel like he had no hope. There was no opportunities. And I'm 18 years old. I'm like, bro, this is not something you put on. Like, I ain't been trained for this. Like, this is not something you come and tell me 11 o'clock. I'm thinking about you. Hey, you want to go to the club?
Yeah.
And so it was in that moment I had an opportunity just to be able to hold space. Yeah. Like a lot of people, when we talk about mental health, are you a safe space?
Right.
And many people think they are, but they're really not. Right? We do these spiritual bypassing, or we start oversimplifying other people's, or we start comparing our issue to someone else. It really ain't that bad. Or we use this silver lining. Other people have it worse. No. And so my one moment, because this was my one moment, I know I was getting a phone call again. And I was just like, just tell me what's going on. And I allowed him to unpack and say all the different things that was going on. I said, hey, bro, what do you want me to tell your mom? Like, this is going to devastate her. He's like, man, I was like, so I'm asking just to be able to get to the heart of it. I was like, man, what can I do? Like, I was like, I know you're far away. I said, I know you made some mistakes. I said, but you're not your mistakes. And for a long, this felt like it was forever. And like, we were just going back and forth, and he was just bargaining and fighting. And I was like, he's like, bro, I'm only calling you because you've just always been a good friend, man. You've never judged me. You've always held me up. You've been supportive.
Right. And
I was
we
like,
need more of that.
And I was like, I said, tomorrow's going to come. I just need to make sure you're here.
Right.
And so, long story short, man, I talked with him. I prayed with him. I said, hey, who can I talk to at our chain of command that you're willing? Because you don't trust nobody else. They've broken the levels of trust. You've broken levels of trust. And so it's like midnight. And I called one of my chain of commands. And I was like, hey, he's only willing to talk to you. I've been able to talk him down. I don't know where he's at. He's not in a good space. And he's potentially about to kill himself. And she says, because of how you reacted, we were able to get him discharged, be able to get him the mental health that he needs.
Right.
Right. He has a family, got 3 kids now. He lives a whole completely different life.
He needed that.
Right.
He needed you in that moment.
It was that moment.
He needed that safe space.
If you would ever ask somebody to sign up for that job, but I'm like, nah, somebody else can get that.
Yeah, he needed that safe space.
I didn't know.
He needed that safe space, and
I
you were
didn't
that.
know.
And congratulations for that.
I appreciate it. But I think that's part of what it means to just be aware and not over. Like, sometimes we can be so much in our stuff that we don't, like, when someone says, how you doing? You have a default. I'm all right. I'm good.
Right.
Sometimes we don't even wait long enough to hear the answer. We walk off. Right. And sometimes when I'm talking to a lot of men, because I coach a lot of men, high performers, like, how are you really doing?
Yeah. Let's talk. Oh, let's go here. Let's unpack that a little bit.
Like, how are you feeling? Like, I talk about emotional intelligence, and for a lot of men, it's, you get the 8 crayons. You get the 16 crayons, you get the 24, you get the 38, you get the 64. That's the range of emotions that you're able to touch. Most of us just get the 8, right? And so sometimes your emotions and how you feel are minimalized. You're told not to cry when you're young, so when do I get to cry? Right? Crying is a sign of weakness, but I'm a human being, so how am I supposed to process my feelings? Right. We don't know see it as a detox. We don't see it as our brain being able to recalibrate itself after we cry. Right. We don't know all these different things, but it's, I'm not masculine, I'm not safe, I'm not strong. If Jesus can cry, and he took on tell me your strongest person who ain't never cried. Right. Or if we don't have language around how we feel, then we retort to the lowest levels. And even in the military, we always have this saying, we show up to our lowest level of training. So if you've never been trained how to process your feelings and your emotions and be able to say, I have a choice versus this is my default, when you're angry, it turns into rage. And rage turns into violence. Right? Versus I'm angry, but because I feel disrespected or undermined. If you can't understand your trigger, you have no control over it. And so you have a lot of people, even our young people, we call them YNs, but they're triggered because no one has taught them how to process. We tell you, as men, we tell you to hurry up and get over it. You should be all right. We are praised for being Superman, but we're shunned for being Clark Kent. And what we don't understand is the more that I build up Clark Kent, the more I get to be Superman for other people. Right. But we often have a time clock on how long you can be not okay. Right?
We talking this morning.
We have a time clock. Like, yeah, I hear that. You still dealing with that. For example, you have a breakup. Let you be heartbroken for longer than 3 weeks. Go find you another girl. Right? Like, you still worried about that? Like, so we have generations. Let me break down generations. We have the silent generation of men where they didn't talk, where their role was just implied. Right? Then you have the next generation of men where it was vaguely just identifying what your job and what your role is, protect and provide. Right? You may have said some things, father may have been there, but he may not have fully been present. Or if he was present, depending on his whatever he was stressed with, he never was taught how to cope with emotions. Then you got millennials. Now we're required to be able to be emotionally intelligent. We're required to have all this range. None of us has been modeled in a healthy way for most men.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I talk to men with doctor's degrees. It's like, how many classes have you taken on emotional intelligence? And I'm like, what? right? But your wife demands it. Your daughters demand it. Your kids demand it.
Yeah.
Everybody, HR definitely demands it.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the difference between you being here or not being here.
Not being
right?
here.
A lot of these, a lot of the biggest challenges
Yes.
men have is because of self-discipline and emotional intelligence. And if you ask most men what makes you successful, I work hard, I grind, I find a strategy. It's never their emotions. But when it comes to their biggest failures and faults and disappointments, there was an emotion attached.
Yeah.
That they didn't process properly, that they didn't have the discipline that kicked in when their defaults showed up. And so when it comes to mental health, if you're in military, we're raised in scarcity and survival, not growth and abundance. And so you have military's number one stressful job in the United States because of constant transition, training, overwhelm. Like your life is on the line. Like
Your life is on the line.
When you're responsible for somebody, you're responsible for 24/7. I'm on vacation. Let Johnny get in trouble and go to jail. They gonna call me on vacation like, what could you have done to stop Johnny from going to jail? He's a grown man.
And I'm on vacation.
I'm on vacation.
Wow.
So your anxiety is constantly at a high. Your stress levels that are constantly high.
Yeah.
And so in the military, you're responsible for 24/7, no matter, and up and down. Like, why didn't you report this up? Why didn't you see some of the symptoms at the job? Did he do his job? Like at Starbucks or at our H&R Block, if Johnny comes and does his job, that's all you're responsible for. Why am I saying all this? It's because there is a lot of weight that men carry. And even now, when men say, if a man was to say, it's tough being a man, somebody gonna say, it's tough being a woman. Right? You think you got something? And nobody's listening to be able to say, what is the heart of the messenger? Is he really just saying life is hard? Or is life hard right now for him?
Yeah.
Right? Versus it's overwhelming. So you become, a lot of men are high functioning depressed. But they got so many bills and responsibilities. Yeah. Like, when I was sat in my therapist chair, he's like, why are you here? I said, because I don't know if I take 2 weeks off, that everything ain't gonna fall apart.
Wow. Yeah.
Like I said, I have so much anxiety about the smallest things, because the smallest thing can disqualify me from being a real man.
Yeah.
Right? If I don't do this right, never mind what has been modeled for me, what opportunities. Like I said, I have so much stress internally. I have my own internal critic who's telling me I need to do more. I got the world telling me to do more. I said, I don't have a place where I get to take all of my armor off.
Right.
Even sometimes at home, I still got to keep my breastplate on because my heart. Look, men can have sex with you. They can have kids with you. They give you the last name. But the last thing most men have been taught is to give you their heart. Because it's the most fragile. This is where your dreams, your aspirations, your goals. Let the wrong person speak to your dream the wrong way.
Yeah.
And that becomes a dream deferred that you never touch, you never grow.
Hey, repeat that quote again for my listeners. That you said men can give you. Repeat that quote again.
Men can give you their last name. They can give you their children. They can give you their bank account. But the very last thing they've been taught is to give you their heart.
Wow. That's big. That's deep.
Right? It's because it's the most fragile.
Yeah.
Nobody's mentored me on heart maintenance, heart checks.
Right.
And so this goes into the heart thing. They said out of the abundance of the mouth, the heart speaks, but also what's in the heart, you think about it, is in the heart is my dreams, my goals, my aspirations, my ego, my pride, all the different things that have uniquely been curated to make me who I am.
Right.
And so I was in a space where I was just carrying a lot. And I didn't realize, and so I was doing the physical fitness with the command, and I passed out on the soccer field. And I passed out 3 times back to back.
Oh yeah.
And by the time the ambulance got there, they were able to check. They were able to put the heart monitor, and they realized that my heart got to like 40 beats per minute. Now, if you're running, you should be high. It shouldn't be at 40.
Wow. And
they were like, you don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't take any drugs. Like, you scored excellent on your last physical fitness test. And so I had to go through a process. They did EKGs, MRIs, the whole nine. They were like, we're not sure what's going on with your heart. And stress is the number one killer for most people. Yeah. Right? Stress, heart attacks,
especially for men. Them heart attacks, right? Take us out, man.
Because you think your stress is something you can suppress, and you only become a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, that's true. Ooh, right? That's true.
I'm just going to bury it.
I'm
going to just bury it. I got another problem. I got to bury it because I got this bill. I'm going to bury it because I got to go take care of this responsibility. For a lot of men, our identity is based on performance. It's not based on being a man. You got to prove you're a good man first. And then now you're on the who do I get to prove? Now I got to protect. Now and so I had to break these limiting, because people benefited from me having to always prove that I was enough.
Mm-hmm.
People benefited from me having to always protect my ego and my image because then now I was going to have to work twice as hard to prove something. Right? If I went out of my way to defend people who would never show up to my funeral.
Right.
Right? I had to be able to unpack what was freedom for me based on what I was conditioned through society to say this makes you enough. And let me tell you, when I coach people who've done amazing things, at the end of the day is, am I worthy and am I enough? If those two buckets are empty, you will self-sabotage your success. You will find a way to make sure that you don't meet the mark. You'll find a way not to reach the goal. If you have a limiting belief that I'm not always going to be this particular way, you'll find a way, right? You'll find a way to be able to make sure that you live lower than your privilege because of a limiting belief or a core story that you have somewhere in your psychosis, in your thought process, in your psychology that says, I am not enough and I am not worthy. Say you get a good man, you'll find a way to subside. Say you get a good woman, you'll find a way to subside. Because somewhere in your psychosis, your belief system says, I'm not supposed to have good things, right? We even think about our culture. Sounds too good to be true. So what does that mean when good things come to me? Right?
It wasn't supposed to. Yeah, that's crazy.
Now, just something as simple as that.
That's a mindset.
Right?
That's a mindset thing.
Let's do a little mind shift thing. Like good things are not supposed to happen. So I'm supposed to be suspicious when good things happen to me, but I'm supposed to expect bad things to happen to me all the time.
Yeah, that's
belief system.
That's a bad way to think about it.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's so nuanced. 95% of our belief system is based on our subconscious programming. The other 5% is based on your five senses. So you think you're running the program. It's really a meta program that's running you.
Yeah.
Like it's a belief system. So why do I say all this? Is because I spent so much time just bottling, suppressing. And that stress, it got to a point where you can only suppress so much until your body starts to break out and say, hey, we can't carry no more.
Yeah.
And so the doctor, I'm sitting in the doctor's office and I'm hearing, I see him in the coat and I hear him talking. I hear him talking, but in my mind, I'm like, Jamal, you're 34 years old. Like, you're doing great in your career. You're a suicide prevention coordinator. Like you're doing all the different things, right? You're helping in the community. You're doing church stuff. You're helping all these different things. You're showing up in all these different places. And I heard him say, Jamal, we don't know why your heartbeat keeps on dropping, and we're gonna have to put a loop recorder in your heart. We're gonna have to put this chip in your heart to monitor your heart and it'll be almost 2.5 years.
Wow.
And I was frustrated. I was like, why me, God? And I was like, he says, son, you're 34 years old. He says, but there's people in this room, in this hospital, that I have to put pacemakers in their heart. He says, this is an opportunity for you to check in.
Wow. Woo. That's impactful.
And so first thing was fear. Because we think we're Superman that's why we don't go to doctors. We don't go to therapists. We don't get help, right? Because it's taboo or it's proof that we're not going to live forever. And so sometimes we need, like, this is one of the challenges why women live longer than men is because they're willing to go get help, and get the clarity. Like, hey, I don't know what this thing is, but we need to go. And for men, it was like, I would rather not know and let it be a surprise. And for a lot of us, it's dealing with the shame. It's dealing with just mortality. Like, if you don't feel like you've done enough in life, the idea of death is very, very scary.
Right.
Like, if you feel like you ain't reached your benchmarks and you ain't reached your goals, I'd rather just be surprised and let everybody else deal with the collateral damage after I'm gone. And so for me, my daughter, like, I've always wanted to be a father. That's like one of my top goals was like, I can't wait to be a father.
Right.
And my daughter was probably like, 3, 4. And I said, my responsibility is to make sure that every day she wakes up, I get to see her.
Yep.
She gets to see me.
Yep, me too.
I said, that's my world.
That's me too.
I said, whatever it takes. And so I had to do a heart check. And me and God were having a conversation, and I was like, I said, what's going on? Like, how come this happened to me? He said, Jamal, you have been carrying people and things that I never assigned to you. He says, now you've been conditioned. He says, but I need you to take them people off. If, like, you've been so much of a performer and showing up for everybody else. He says, I ain't signed all those people to you. they attach themselves to you, right? And so I had to create some boundaries. That's my favorite B word.
Boundaries.
Boundaries.
Yeah.
Right? Too Short may have something different, but mine's is boundaries.
Right.
Boundaries is about making sure that if I say no to you, I'm not being selfish, I'm being selfful. Right? I'm making sure that I've been given a certain amount of time on this earth, and I can't afford that in my final days that I tell God, hey, I didn't do all those things that you put in me to do because someone else was more important. And so I had, now I had to be able to come from and say, no, I'm pissing people off, friends and family. No, you always say yes. And people who are accustomed to taking never have limits, right? So those people who you've been saying yes for years, you tell them no, it's like you done slapped their unborn child. They're like, what do you mean no?
Yeah.
And so I had to create more boundaries, but I also started thinking of my health of Jamal, who are you carrying and what are you carrying today? What do you need to unpack? What do you need to let go of? And because of that loop recorder, I realized that I had some other things that are going on with my body that I would never be aware of. So like I said, before I said this is the bad thing, where's the gift? Where's the lesson? Where's my opportunity to grow? Right? Those were those three things that came in. My gift is I still get to be on this earth another day.
Right.
Or my lesson is take care of my health before I try to take care of anybody else's situation. What does Jamal need for himself? How do I fill my cup up first before I start pouring in any other people's? Because this is where the bitterness and the frustration takes place. You done poured in everybody else's. Your cup is empty and everybody like, we good.
Right.
Who is we?
Right.
Right? When I'm up, everybody say we up. When I'm down, hey, you got to figure this out.
Right.
And so I started to make sure that I created boundaries, but I started to pour into my cup emotionally, spiritually, financially, education-wise. Like I tried to make sure the different areas of my life that I was consistently putting information into. So even when it comes to mindset, my belief system, I call it, driving university, right? When I'm in my car, I'm listening to something that's either inspirational, motivational, educational, or transformational, right? Because I need to make sure that I'm creating new information into my mindset and my belief system that goes beyond my current reality, right? But also I'm making sure that, Jamal, what you're made of mind, body, and spirit, no matter what your religion is. So how am I feeding my mind? What quality of food am I feeding my mind? Am I giving it junk of reality TV? Or am I giving myself content that allows me to make more money, gives me more time freedom? Right? And my body is a temple. Am I putting only junk and MSG in there? Or am I getting myself quality food spiritually?
Right.
You're made of mind, body, spirit. Well, a lot of us men do. We feed mind and body and we starve spirit.
Wow.
And so there's an imbalance because you're a triune being.
Right.
Right? And so when all three are in alignment, this is what alignment means. When all three are in alignment, spiritually, that you're able to hear with a different level of intuition. And your intuition is the neuroscience behind it is the vagus nerve. It's a nerve inside your body. There's three different levels of communication. You got me in my bag now.
Yeah.
There's three different levels of communication that takes place. There's the brain, there's the heart, there's the gut, and there's the spirit. There's four different levels of communication that take place. The brain takes in over 11 billion bits of information per second, right? And they're all different communication styles. So your brain is usually talking about your prefrontal cortex. It's usually right here in your forehead. This is your analytical mind. This is your safe. Is it safe? Is it safe? Is it safe? Right? Your heart usually knows the truth, but it communicates information in a different way. Your vagus nerve. If you ever watched Animal Planet or anything like that, where you see a gazelle that's like 100 yards and there's this lion, and all of a sudden the gazelle just starts taking off, right? We have this same sense. It's called the vagus nerve. So usually you say, something told me I shouldn't have done that, or something told me I should have did this instead of that. That's that same sixth sense. It's called the vagus nerve, but nobody says, hey, that's that vagus nerve talking. We normally say it's your intuition or your inner wisdom.
Yeah.
And then there's the spirit of knowing that I am a spirit before I was ever mind and body. And say my spirit already knows the truth. I'm just looking for confirmation. Right? And so when all four into alignment, it's being able to say, who's talking? Usually your head does more talking. And your brain has never been designed for fulfillment. It's been always for safety. So when you say, I'm going to leave this job and build my dream, the brain says, we don't have no evidence that's going to be successful. Right? Whenever you say you're going to do something that's outside of norm, that's not predictable, that we don't have a definite outcome, your brain is going to fight you first until you give it more evidence that it can happen. And so this is why it's being in rooms where people think bigger than you. This is why it's important to be in environments where people want more for you, where your problem is just something they talk about that they can fix versus something else that you're like, man, my whole life is around this problem.
Yeah.
Right? So it's very good to be around in other environments. Once the brain has been expanded to something, it can no longer go back to what it used to. Wow. And so one of the beauty about being around people who think at a higher level, one thing that I've learned about beautiful mindset is get around people who inspire you. because they allow you to believe at a different level, think at a different level. I thought $50 an hour was a lot of money in this one ecosystem.
Right.
Until somebody paid me $1,000 to speak for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I said, wait a minute, Jesus, we can do this. I can keep on doing this. Like I thought, and realize what I realized, it is mindset, heart set, skill set. How do I train my mind to what I believe? What does my heart know to be true? And what's the skill that I need to build to be able to manifest what I want?
Hey, my boy just dropped some nuggets, man. Hey, man, shout out to the Jamal Vallair, the mindset coach, for coming through, man, for another edition of Positive Mind Saturdays. So before we get out of here, man, let everybody know where they can find you online, your website, your social media. Let them know.
Absolutely. My name is Jamal Vallair. You can find me on Instagram at Coach Jamal, JAMAL_Vallair, V as in Victor, ALLAIR. You can find me on Facebook. If you want to work with me or have some conversations with me, you can find me on my website, or you can find me on Facebook. I'm pretty simple. And my purpose is helping people find their vision, mission, and purpose in life, and be able to maximize and monetize their opportunities. And so I have had opportunities to work with people from all around the world, from your Les Browns to Lisa Nichols. I've been a sales director for a 7-figure business, done over $1 million in sales. I've coached over 1,500 people across 42 countries in personal development, speaker development. And so I get the opportunity to live this second chapter of my life on my own terms, doing what I love. And so if you're a visionary, if you're a creative, if you're an executive, and you're looking for clarity, if you're looking to build the next chapter of your life and monetize on your genius and maximize your genius, but also get some work-life harmony versus a work-life balance, I'd love to have a conversation with you.
All right, that's what it is, my boy Jamal Vallair. I am your host for Positive Mind Saturdays over here at 101 TKO Radio, the People's Plug. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.
Peace.
Great.